Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join real estate entrepreneur and mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, welcome back to Construct Your Life. This is Austin Linney here. I have such a treat. You know, Kyle, he has about 3,000 units. He is really a monster. And I'm just messing with you.
Good one.
Yeah, I'm just fun. No, I have the honor of having Kyle Grimm here. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing awesome. Excited to be here. Finally.
Yeah, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate you taking the time to come on. You know, love to have people on, love to have my guests tell their story where they want to. So why don't you just start where you want to, and we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah. So, again, Kyle Grimm. I am 27 years old. I don't know if I look like I'm 12 or if I look older. I don't know. Everyone's got a different opinion on how old I look. But so I am from Illinois, a very rural town, not super rural, about 45,000 people. Born and raised here, about 2 hours north of St. Louis, Missouri. So I'm on the Mississippi River straight north. And I don't know how in depth you want me to get into my story. But
you want to go.
So I guess out of high school, it was actually senior year of high school, I bought my first little house. And everyone's going to say, like, how in the world did you afford a house in high school? Let me finish. This house cost $5,000. So when people, hear that, they're like, what in the world? What'd you buy? So again, pretty small town in the Midwest. You can find a lot of properties here for like $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 that's livable. But I was in a high school. I didn't really have a plan. Like I never had like that route of like, hey, I'm going to go to college and be an engineer. It was always like, I'm going to figure it out as I go. My dad was not someone who went to college, and he was always an entrepreneur, and he always just made it happen. So I think I kind of took his example. And so I was kind of looking at real estate. My dad was in real estate back in his 20s and 30s, and he had about 50 units, give or take, and he sold everything. And he always told me growing up that he regretted getting out of real estate. He wishes he would have stuck with it. And so I think I had that in the back of my mind, but I had no money back in high school. I had a little bit saved up just from working odd jobs, and I was looking at houses for sale, and I found this house. They're asking like $12,000 for it. A little shotgun style house in probably the worst area in my hometown. And I was like, hey, Dad, like I'm thinking about making an offer on this house. And he's like, well, I guess you don't have a whole lot to lose. And so I made an offer for $5,000, and I probably should have ran away when they accepted my offer, but they accepted it, and it took a long time, but we got it fixed up. Dad helped me out. He kind of taught me, how to fix things, how to hang drywall. And in this place, I mean, looking back at it, I kind of laugh because I don't say we cut corners, but we fix things the cheap way. And I mean, I learned a lot through that process, but I definitely don't buy stuff like that anymore. But it's how I got started. Mm-hmm. And so I bought that first little house. And then I think that next summer that I bought that one, my uncle, he was moving out of his house. And so I agreed to pay my uncle a certain set price for his house. However, before he sold it, he let us come in there and fix it up. So it was me, my cousin, a buddy of mine. We went in there, remodeled the house, and got it all fixed up. And then we had an agreement with my uncle that we were going to pay him like $160,000 for the house, no matter what. And I was going to keep the profit of anything that we sold above that. So that was my first like flip house. And I got lucky, that my uncle let me do that. But that really got my investing career, off and running. So, again, I don't know how much back.
What'd you sell that second one for?
I don't actually remember. I just remember that my take home was like $14,000 after I paid, my buddy, my cousin, and all that stuff. So it wasn't like, a life-changing amount of money, but I think how old was I? 19 at the time, 19, 20, 19. So it was awesome. I mean, and I learned a ton through it, but back in the day, I was doing all the work myself. And so, I had the construction, I had my truck, I had my trailer, I had all the tools. And so as I've continued down the real estate journey, I've realized that, you can't be trying to do everything yourself if you're trying to scale.
Mm-hmm.
So that was back in 2012 was when I bought that first house. And so I've been kind of doing it ever since. I tend to veer off path a little bit, get distracted by something, but I always end up coming back to real estate. And so that's what I'm still doing today.
And you say you graduated high school. Did you go to college or no?
So I started at a community college, again, not knowing what I wanted to do. And I was like, well, I should probably get a degree. So I started at our local community college for a construction technologies degree, which was the most pointless degree I could have chosen. I was thinking I was going to like parlay that into construction management, but this was more or less just job site. Like we're on a job site, we're building like things for the parks and for just community things. And the teaching, it just wasn't there. I mean, it was, I learned more flipping those houses than I did, that schooling for sure. So that's as far as I went. I got an associate's degree in construction technologies, whatever that means.
So you got the 14 grand from the first one. And then like, were you working at the time? Like, are you not in school? Like, how are you making money to continue to invest?
Yeah, so I was working construction. I was working for a local contractor. We were building retirement duplexes for seniors. Okay. So I was making money that way. And just backing up a little bit to that first house I bought. So I ended up purchasing the next house next door to it for another $5,000. And actually, if I look at my closing statement, I still have it. It was like $4,600 after prorations and all that. So, I was getting into those houses for so cheap, and I didn't put a ton of money into them, and I was renting them out for that first one I rented out to a guy named Leroy for $525. And so, I was making some money right there, baby. I mean, it was fun.
No, I love it. It's perfect. So after you did the second one, like where did you go next in the investing part?
So, let's see, I'm trying to keep my years straight here. So about 2014 is when I would have graduated college, that 2 years. And then I went down to St. Louis, Missouri, because I was like, I want to get out of here. I want to try some different things. I want to, shoot for the stars. And so I went down to St. Louis and I bought a duplex and I was house hacking it. So I was living in one unit, renting out the other unit. And then I had two roommates. Two of my roommates both lived in the unit with me. So tenant was paying the mortgage and the two roommates were paying my utilities. So I was living for free. And I look back at that year and a half that I lived in St. Louis and I'm like, what in the world was I doing? Like, I tried to get into wholesaling a little bit. I was working with some guys who started a wholesale company and I didn't even sell a single house, I don't think. So I was getting a little bit of, set base salary doing that. But so I tried wholesaling for a little bit. In the meantime, my dad actually purchased 40% of my rental portfolio that I was building. And so at that point, I had, the backing of his financial statement to kind of keep leveraging. So I ended up buying another duplex down in St. Louis that I bought for $40,000. I think I put in $27,000, and then I rented those units out. And I actually just sold that building last year for like $102,000. So I held that for quite a while, and that was down in St. Louis.
So you said something interesting there. Like you tried the wholesaling, you didn't sell a house. You're still buying rental properties. This is typically, which I don't think is a bad thing. So I'm not saying it in a bad context. Like you got to try stuff. But as you look back on it now, as we continue to talk about your story, do you think that year and a half was necessary in St. Louis just to know that you weren't sitting in your hometown going, I wonder if?
I just had this conversation with my little sister. I think it's great. I mean, to be honest, to go out and try different things, because I'm the type of person, everyone's different, but I'm the type of person that if I don't try something, the next, 2 years down the road, I'm gonna be like, why didn't I try that? So that St. Louis move, even though I'm kind of like, well, I wasted a ton of time and I didn't really accomplish anything. I know that I would have regretted not doing it because I would have just been like, what if, what if it took off and what if so.
So after St. Louis, did you move back home again?
So again, I tended to veer off a little bit, and so from there, I was in St. Louis, and I decided, well, I'm gonna move back to my hometown. So I decided, well, I'm gonna go get my real estate license in Illinois, and I attended a 2-week in-person class to get my real estate license just to knock it out, and that was in Peoria, Illinois. And when I went up there, I had a buddy up there who sold insurance. And so he's like, "Hey man, like I see what you're doing with real estate and stuff. Instead of selling real estate, where you're only selling one house for someone maybe every 10 years, come build a insurance portfolio where you have renewals every year." And he sold me the whole insurance thing. And so I went up there and I'm like, well, I guess I'll give it a shot. So I got my real estate license and I got licensed for insurance at the same time. And so I started selling insurance with him. And that lasted a month, maybe. I was up there longer than that, but once I actually started like cold calling, like, "Hey, will you let me bid your, quote your insurance?" I was just like, "Hey, this isn't for me." So I tried that out, and I came back to my hometown, and I actually for a while there, I was like, "Okay, now what? Now what am I going to do?" I'm going to start selling real estate, but it's a grind getting going. And I actually moved back in with my parents, which, hey, saving money there. But I actually started working again for the contractor who I had been working with back in like high school, college days. So that got me through for a while. But, fast forwarding to today, still I've always been building my portfolio of rental properties. And back in like 2016, I got interested in mobile home parks. And so I bought my first park in 2019, so a couple years ago now. I bought the first park, and I'm up to 3. The first park, the first park was 36 units, 36 pads, and there was 30 homes in the park when I purchased it.
So you're like duplex, 5,000 houses, and I'm just going to go buy a 36 unit mobile home park.
Yeah, it's something like that.
What gave you the confidence to go do something like that?
Well, I think that I'd been messing around in the single family space, and I bought a couple duplexes. I purchased a property with 2 buddies, one of the guys who I sold the insurance for. So it was him and another guy named Brandon. We bought a chiropractor office with some student housing above it in Bloomington Normal. So I had some experience with that. And I just started looking at mobile home parks, and I started reading about them. And I realized that a lot of times these owners, all they own is the dirt. They don't actually own any of the homes. And I was sick of getting calls about, toilets and, the roof is leaking or the furnace went out. And so I was looking around like, how can I still continue to invest in real estate, but relieve myself of some of the headache? And so I Googled, mobile home park investing, and I came across a guy named Frank Rolfe, and he's like the 5th largest park owner in the country. And he puts on a little seminar, a boot camp. It's like a 3-day boot camp. And so I went to that back in 2016, and I just realized, hey, these things are awesome because all I own is a parking lot, and everyone owns their own home. They all maintain their own toilets, their own furnace, their own roof, and I just collect lot rent, and I maintain the grass, and I make sure the plumbing and things like that is okay underground. But I kind of fell in love with the things, and so I've kind of been focused on those, I would say, in the last year and a half primarily.
How many units do you have, or how many mobile home parks do you have now?
So I just have 3 right now. I have another one under contract. So it's just, I have the 36 space is my biggest one. I have a 22 space, a 21 space, and then I have a 38 space park under contract right now.
How much acreage is like the 33 unit park? Like, I'm just trying to vision it out for myself. Like, how much room you would need to.
Yeah, I should know that. I'm going to guess it's probably 5 acres.
Okay.
I might be way off there, but it's not huge.
When you're buying something like that, because I'm definitely in the market for all those things, RVs and everything. Do you value just the dirt, or do you value that they already have the pads down and the revenue that's coming off the pad? Do you have to pay that premium to buy it?
Well, I mean, typically I am buying on existing income.
Mm-hmm.
So even if they have a pad that's already poured with the utilities and everything there, typically I don't place a value on that. I'm only looking at the income that is already coming in from the existing homes. So sometimes you'll buy a park that has some park owned homes that come with it, which I don't really want, but I will place some value on those homes, as I'm purchasing them, but I'm really not putting a ton of value on those homes. I'm really just looking at the income that's coming in off of the lot rent.
And, for anybody that's new out there, it's interesting. I got to connect you with this guy now that I'm thinking about it. I just released his podcast today, actually. He's got 33 mobile home parks, and he started with 0. He's got 3,500 units. Really nice guy out of San Francisco.
Wow.
Very nice guy, doing some big things. And he gets very, very, very adamant about the way that people like look down on like mobile homes and like all that stuff. And I'm right there with them. Like, rents are rising, houses and lumber's costing a fortune. Like, people need a place to live. Like, I'm tired of this shit, like looking down on people. Like, and so as you've gone down this road in this space, which is a space that not everybody's in, what advice would you give to younger people looking at, they want to do the flash and dance, they want to do the wholesale, they want to do the flipping, but that's work. It's really a lot of work. And this is work too, but in a different kind of way. What advice would you give them if they're thinking about this? Because there's a lot of kids. I know one that I help right now who lives in a rural town that would be really interested in doing stuff like this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess first, just getting over the perception that mobile home parks are, trashy, and that, that they're a lesser people. I mean, that's completely false. 100% false. And actually, I sell these parks. If you think about it, if you're comparing a mobile home park that you might consider a lesser desirable property to an apartment building of the equivalent status, here's my thing. An apartment building, when you're in a lower class, you are going to have tenants who are continually moving in and out, and very transient people who aren't staying very long. There's probably a lot of shady things that are going on, and there's not a real good community aspect there. And the thing about these parks that I absolutely love is, like my tenants, I have tenants who have been there for 15, 20, 25, 30 years. And so what I have found in these parks, if they own their own homes, typically they're there for a long, long time. And it's so much more like a neighborhood. It's like the neighborhood I grew up in. Everyone knows each other. They're all looking out for each other. Yes, there's definitely those shady mobile home parks where there's, a lot of rundown homes and stuff, but you might actually find that a lot of times it's when the owner owns the mobile homes themselves and he uses them as rentals. And then the people don't care as much about their homes. The way that I like to do things is I want them all to own their own homes. They're there for a long time. Everyone knows each other. It's a safe community. And so, I would say, like, someone who's interested in this business, consider that. Sometimes the sexy, apartment building or whatever, it might not be as sexy as you think,
Yeah. And then typically, because this is thrown around a lot, and people are like, "Well, how much does that cost?" Have you added any footings, or like for new? Have you like expanded out from the existing ones that you bought, like added on pads, or no?
I have not added on pads. I've filled existing pads that I bought, like, that were vacant, but I have not added on.
Do you have an idea how much those cost to add on new pads per pad?
I really don't. I know it's going to depend on your area.
Okay.
See, in my part of the country, it doesn't make financial sense typically for me to add pads. But if you're buying in a big metro where you're selling these things at 6 caps, it might make sense to spend that, 40, 50 grand to develop a lot. I don't really know what the number is, but where I'm at, a lot is valued anywhere. Well, I'm buying them at like 10,000 a lot, where 10 to 15,000 a lot, where, you go to these other markets and you might be paying 30, 40, 50,000 a lot.
And what's a typical, just to give them breakdown of the numbers, you're buying at 10,000 a lot. What are you typically getting on average per pad per month?
So again, very different in all locations, but my average is around $200 and that's low. I would say the average around here is like 215, 230, somewhere in there.
And then I'm curious because we're playing with a property for a client up in Montana where we found out that because if we put A-frame houses on the lakefront property, we don't have to pay property taxes on those because it's not a structure that's tied to the ground.
Okay.
And so are you paying property taxes on top of, like, are the owners paying that? Or are you paying that? Like, does that take your property value up because it's just cement on the ground, or how does that work?
So I still pay property tax just on the land. But then all of the actual, it's always very specific to where you are. But in my specific situation, the cities where I invest in, they send tax bills to each home individually. Okay. But the tax bill is like $100 a year. So it's like, it's nothing.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, right? I mean, like I went and saw some high school friends for the first time in like 3 years. They're my best friends, like from like 20 years ago. And we were joking, like, cause my buddy grew up in a mobile home and like his was fucking shitty. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, he'll tell you, but it's like, dude, you look at these now and it's like, damn, like 4-bedroom, 3-bath, like double wide, like,
oh yeah,
dude, that's nice. Like, it's good stuff. And so, like, I think we need to like remove the way we think about, like, I mean, it's really like, it's good.
Right.
Like,
and you were speaking earlier about just how prices are going crazy. Lumber prices are going sky high, and we know that the middle class, we're losing the middle class. The rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer. I think as investors, we need to look at that trend, and I'm more than happy to provide housing to the lower income, because I think it's almost safer than when you're investing in the A class, because if you think about it, when a recession does hit, everyone tightens their belt and everyone will come down, a notch. So I have found that, I have so much demand. I get calls every day from people asking, hey, do you have anything, available in your parks? And I just can't, I just don't even have enough to meet the demand. But I think in the future, I think these parks are going to look a lot different. I think because back in the the 60s, parks were kind of they're kind of cool. They're sexy. Like Elvis Presley, I'm pretty sure lived in one, and different movie stars.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping that as the future goes on, parks will lose their bad reputation. They're trading hands. A lot of the mom and pops kind of drove them into the ground. Mm-hmm. And now these investors are putting money back into them. They're improving them. And I really hope that we can lose that bad reputation and almost turn them into like tiny home communities, like, mm-hmm. upper scale mobile homes that are still affordable, and it just gives people a really great place to live. So I don't know. Hopefully I'm not being too optimistic about that. We'll see.
No, I love it. So you're 27 now, got 3 mobile home parks. Are you purely living off of your passive, like your cash flow from your investments?
No, I'm not. And actually I try not to touch the rent personally.
How are you paying your bills?
Yep. So I'm a realtor. That's kind of my day, my day job. So another thing, I live very, very affordably. My wife and I house hack a 4-unit. And so, we have very little living expenses there. And then she works as well. So our philosophy right now, we're young, we're like trying to live pretty cheap and just keep investing. And then we're hoping to, start living off the passive income here, probably the next 5 years or so.
And that was my next question. The vision for you, I mean, obviously life changes and the asset classes you invest in. Like, if I were to tell you like 5 years from now, like, do you think it's still mobile home parks? Is it a different asset class eventually? Like, as you see it?
I mean, that's a good question. My vision changes like every day, but my vision right now for my future is I want to own, like, I don't need to be a billionaire. Sure, I'd love to be financially successful, but what's more important to me is time freedom. So rather than trying to be worth, $100 million, I want to build a portfolio of diverse properties. So mobile home parks, some multifamily, maybe even a portfolio of single family, some Airbnbs, And then I want to build out, or I'm in the process right now of building out vertically integrated management. So part of my 2021 goals is hire a manager to actually work for me, because right now I self-manage everything. So then, that would give me the time freedom from answering the calls and, delegating with my contractors and things like that. But yeah, to answer your question, I mean, I will still probably be in parks. I don't usually buy something planning to flip it. I plan to hold it for, 15, 20 years. So, 5 years from now, I hope that my portfolio has just continued to grow with, good quality assets.
What do you tell? It's hard out there especially in the 20s. It's hard out there for investors or people looking to get into investing, or anybody that's in real estate. How do you stay focused, right? Because, on Instagram, there's all the guys that I know, and 70K wholesales, 80K wholesales, or at least they claim they do.
They have 10,000 ownership and 10,000 units.
Yeah, they own 10,000 units, yet they own like a percent of a percent of a percent of nothing. How do you stay focused on kind of like what you need to work on, and the fact that there's a real fucking conversation that at 30 years old you'll be financially free with cash flow if you needed to be? Like, that's what everybody dreams of, and you did it, or you're going to do it. And so how do you stay, you are going to do it. So how do you stay focused?
Man, I mean, I'm obsessed. I really am. But I think, like I said earlier, my plan does shift. It does change, and you got to be okay with that. But as long as you have the end goal in mind, that's what you got to keep focused on. And I'm pretty good about looking over my goals, looking over my vision, thinking about the future. And so I continually have to readjust my plan, and have that conversation, with my wife, even like, hey, what are we doing wrong right now? What do we need to change up so that we do, make our destination in 5 years? So I think, for the young kids out there who are like wanting to get started, and they see these guys, flashing around that they own, thousands of units and, all this stuff. I went through a phase there where I would get super depressed. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? I see all these guys, younger than me who claim they have, 1,000 units and all this stuff. And I mean, eventually you got to just stay in your own lane. I love, I don't know, Austin, if you've seen the picture of Michael Phelps. He's like finishing a race, and he's swimming up to the wall, and like he's like this much. I mean, he's only a couple inches ahead of the other guy, but he's focused on the front. He's got his arm extended out, and then his competition's looking over at him, trying to see what he's doing. Yeah, and I think about that every day, because it's so easy for me to look at these other guys and just be like, man, look at what he's doing. I should be trying that. But man, keep your vision, keep your eyes on your own lane, and make sure that it's what you want and not what the world wants for you.
Because think of it from this context. It's an amazing point, and you're 100% right. I love that. Love that photo. The amount of energy that you're wasting worried about what somebody else is doing is distracting you from what you actually need to be doing. Because I'm going to let you in on the biggest secret in the world. I'm going to change your entire life with this one statement. Nobody gives a fuck about you.
Right.
I lost 70 pounds. You know who said anything? Fucking nobody. Nobody gives a shit. I got sober. You know who gave a shit? For about a day, and they don't care anymore. Everybody is doing their own thing, living their own lives, feeding their own kids, feeding their own thing. It's amazing to me how many people I coach that spend 8 months creating these stories. Well, my boss is going to think this, and this ex-girlfriend is going to think that. And then they have the conversation, and I'm like, what happened? They were actually very supportive. And I'm like, huh? And you wasted 8 months, like worried about what they were going to say. And we have to get in, the horse at the Kentucky Derby, put the blinders on, go to work, stop talking so much, and just execute. Because at the end of the day, I had a great marketing guy tell me this the other day. Marketing's not hard. And I was like, what? Fuck yeah, it's hard as shit. He's like, no, it's not. All you do is tell people about your results. And I was like, oh shit. I'm like, he's like, let me ask you a question. Have you built out an Airbnb hotel systems? Yeah. Have you lost 65 pounds? Yeah. Are you sober? Yes. Have you bought houses? Yes. Okay. Let's talk about those. And I was like, fuck. I was like, son of a bitch. I was like, I've been racking my brain for 3 years trying to figure out marketing.
I feel like we all have a bit of imposter syndrome in us where we're like, because I struggle with it. This is my biggest problem. I tell myself, like, who am I to succeed? Who am I to talk about this stuff?
Yeah.
And so, it's you're so right.
No, it is. And you asked me and you're like, why didn't he come on here? And I'm like, because I need people to understand that your age, the train has done some rights and lefts, but at the end of the day, the goal was still the same. Like the goal was, I'm going to be financially free, and I'm not worried about if it's sexy. Right. I'm not worried about how fast it looks, because it's hard. It's fucking hard because you get so caught up. But I think at the end of the day, it's something, my analogy I keep using this week. Do you drink at all or no?
A little bit. Just
okay. So about wine, I love this analogy. Do you know how great wine is made?
I don't.
By lack of rain. Like really? Okay. They actually want grapes to suffer. Huh. They like don't want the water. Like they forbid the water. Like we don't want rain because we want it to like be like intensive, and we like volcano rock and granite, and we want it to push and hurt, and that makes the best wine. Well, guess what? The same way in life.
Right.
It's earned. You can either go easy or you can go hard. And I guarantee you, if you go entrepreneurship or you go investing, it's going to be harder. But at the end, when you're sitting down and you're reflecting, you're going to feel better because you earned it. And, we just had Chris Grinzik on our other podcast, and he was talking about when he went off on his own from Toro, and he said he was so pissed off how supportive everybody was. He's like, really? His mom and like his uncle were like, "Oh, this is going to be great, baby. Like, way to go." Like Toro guys were like, "No, dude, we believe in you." And he's like, "All I wanted was one motherfucker to say, you're not going to do it."
Yeah, you can't do it, Chris. You're going to fail, man.
And I was what an amazing, that's a really good point. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, you should get Chris on the phone, because I was just looking at Instagram and it looks like he's having some plumbing issues at his
so listen, he said he wasn't gonna make the podcast today. He's like, I don't want to talk because but we talked about that. We talked about that. I'll give you I said this on the podcast. I'll say it on this one. My coach gave me the best. He doesn't know where he heard it, but he gave me the best description of entrepreneurship I've ever heard. He said, entrepreneurship is you show up, you dressed up nice, you show up at the dinner table, somebody slides a bowl in front of you, and it's a bowl of dog shit. And he says, you eat up all the dog shit, you get done, you're like, fucking thank God, I'm done with the dog shit. And then they slide another bowl in front of you. And he says that just happens over and over again. And then that's interesting. And I was like, what an amazing analogy, but here's the deal. I'll take that over working for somebody because I'm just a bad employee. Like I'm just not, I don't want to listen. Like, and I'd rather my financial freedom and my goals be hinged on me and my doing, opposed to whether or not that guy's getting, the guy, I apologize for my French, is getting fucked by his wife. I would I try to tell, when I do jokes, with big groups, I'm like, don't be mad at your boss. He's just not getting any. Like, if you look at it from that context, you can just smile and laugh, because at the end of the day, the corporate boss, whoever it is, the boss of you is dictating on his whim, whether or not and that doesn't work for me. Even though I'll take my failures just as way I'll take my wins. Yeah.
And again, for me, I mean, my time is the most important thing to me. I just love freedom and flexibility. And that's why entrepreneurship is, it sucks. I mean, every day is a grind, but you do have the flexibility to say, hey, I want to go hiking this afternoon, or I want to go to my kid's baseball game, or whatever it is. But I don't know. I mean, this whole conversation, I hope everyone listens to this point, especially if the young people are listening now. Like, real estate's not always as sexy as you think it is. And I feel like this whole conversation, I've even oversold, who I am or what I'm doing. Like, I mean, it's a grind. I mean, they're like, today my phone's ringing. I've got issues going on in my 12-unit apartment building and, drama at one of my mobile home parks. And maybe I just don't do things correctly and systematize correctly, but it's not all sexy. And I would say if someone's looking to get into this business, spend time with investors who have done different things and figure out like what you want to focus on. And try to, cut through all the bull crap that you see on Instagram and all that, because a lot of it's just the best,
Yeah.
It's just the best.
Yeah, dude, I remember, I never told this story on the podcast, but I'll tell it to you because I tell you and Chris are having a bad day. So I'll give you a story and then we'll get out of here. And I never share the story because it's so embarrassing on so many levels, but it just shows you what happens. So Airbnb, I'm newer to the game. I've probably got like 2 or 3 properties, and I had my biggest group, man. I mean, it was like spring break. They were in for a convention. Final Four was in town. I mean, it was like $4,500 for like 6 days. I mean, it's huge. It was huge. It was like, I was nervous. Like the guy was really nice. Like I was like, man, this is awesome, dude. Like, holy shit. And so, like I came home during work and like I was still cleaning all the units and like working a full-time job, like a 70-hour week job. So I was cleaning the unit and like I'm going to put on the comforter and the sheets in the master. The moment I go, I'm rushing. The moment I go to put the things on, I heard like a fucking Mack truck. And I was like, what the fuck? And I didn't even think anything of it. And then like, I heard somebody yelling outside and I'm like, oh fuck, I need to go check it out. So I run from the back of the house and I go out the front door, and my house was on the corner and it was raining, and somebody drove through my fence and broke 15 feet of it. Right. And I was like, holy fuck, like, what do I do? So I ran back inside. I called my business partner and I was like, dude, I need your help. Like, can you come, and like my neighbor came out. And I made everything real quick. I closed, that ain't the story, baby. I closed it all up. So we just like start throwing everything in a wheelbarrow, and I'm like cleaning it up as much as I can. I'm like, hey, y'all don't have a dog, right? So I text them. I'm like, y'all don't have a dog, right? Because we don't have a fence to keep them in. They're like, somebody just ran through my fence, and they're like, oh shit. Like, no, like it's fucking whatever. We're not even going to be there. Don't even worry about it. I was like, okay, fuck yeah. Like, we're good. So they didn't get into like 11 o'clock at night. Like they've been traveling like all day. So I'm sleeping in my garage apartment in the back, and I wake up at 6:30 in the morning to 24 messages like on my phone from them. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? So like I start reading through them, and like I go down and like I'm like watching the videos they sent me, and I'm like, I still don't understand what's going on. Right. Okay. He calls me, and I'm like talking to him in the morning. I'm like trying to understand what's going on. And all of a sudden I hear a woman in the background going, I'm going to fuck you up. Like, how dare you run this fucking shitty? And I still don't know what the fuck is going on. Okay. So let me tell you what happened. They've been traveling all day. She's in a fucking very expensive suit. And what had happened was the group that had checked out right beforehand was from England. And they had a 2-year-old. And the 2-year-old had pissed in the bed, and they didn't tell me. And so when I put the sheets down, it was still wet on the mattress, and she sat in the puddle at 12 o'clock at night after traveling for 10 hours.
Oh no.
And she thought I did it on purpose, like as a joke. She was convinced that I did it on purpose. Dude, I'm like mortified. I'm like, I'd be like, I don't even like, they're like, what are you going to do about it? And I was like, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I was like, I called my furniture place. I was like, dude, I need this like now. I need a new mattress. I need like everything. So I said, I'm going to throw out everything. She goes, you're going to get rid of the mattress? I said, no. I'm throwing out the sheets, the comforters, the pillows. I'm throwing fucking everything out. So I called into work. I got a rental truck, like a U-Haul. And I was like, I got to run up to my place. Long story. This is really smart what I did. So they're going to pay for it. They were like, I'm not going to pay for it. I'm like, no, you're paying for it. And so I knew the furniture place a bunch. And so I said, listen, I need you to give me an invoice that says I bought a $750 mattress. So what I bought instead was 2 mattresses, a couch, and like 3 other things for like the $700. And then they paid for it. But I came home and I'm putting everything together. I put the mattress on, the new sheets, everything. And I'm like, okay, that's fucking great. I can put it all in and I'll be gone. And I've got like $400 in my pocket, right? Like, I'm like, if I see them, like but she's like, we're not going to be there. Well, I'm finishing up, and who gets out of the taxi but the woman? And I'm like, my wife at the time, my ex-wife now, ran away. She was like, no, like, you're dealing with this. I am just like, ma'am, I was like, I'll be honest with you. I don't even know what to say. Like, I was like, it's not even worth it. Like, all I did was like, I handed out like $400 in my hand. And I was like, just, whatever. And she's like, look. She goes, I was traveling all day. I know, like, I was kind of mean. Like, it's totally fine. Like, don't even worry. Like, I'll send my shit to dry cleaning. She's like, did you just change the sheets? And I'm like, no. I changed everything. Like, you're good to go. They wound up leaving me like a 5-star review, and like everything was gravy, but it was the wildest story I've ever had. And what it made me realize is that how you react in the situation, and what people are interesting people. Yeah, they might have been mad in the moment, but really what they want you to know is acknowledgement and then action on top of the acknowledgement. And I think we need to take that into investing when we're a landlord or when we're an entrepreneur. Like, yeah, they might seem really angry, but what I've found after dealing with millions of guests through Airbnb is that they really just want the acknowledgement that you've heard them. And this can be with your spouse. This can be with your partner, business partner. One of my favorite quotes, I've said it 7 times today because I just found it yesterday morning. George Bernard Shaw. He said, the problem with communication is the illusion that it's actually happened.
That's good. That's good.
It's the truth, right? You, as the property manager that you bring on, right? You're going to have to pull everything that's out of your head and get him to understand this is the way that we're going to do it. And that's very scary, right? Like getting me an assistant and a VA, that's very scary. But once you get over that hump and you properly communicate and the lines get cleaned up, you're like, damn, this is amazing. And like, that's what you're going to see. Like, I've had a coaching client, he had 15 units and he turned it over to a property management team. And he's like, oh, bro, he's like, I can go like 70 now. And it's just that, but now he knows, right? Like, he knows the business, and that's where you're going to get to eventually. And that's going to be even freeing, because what people don't understand is time and money finds places to fill it up. So when you switch to that property management, I would say it'd be really good to make sure you already know where you're headed, because it could get filled up with stuff that you don't want.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true.
No, I love it. So if people want to find out more about you, they want to follow your journey, how would they do that?
The best place is probably Instagram, and I'm looking at my handle. It's _ Kyle Grimm, and Grimm has 2 M's, Grimm. I probably post there the most, and that's probably where you can get a hold of me the easiest too.
Kyle, I want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story, man. It's been a fun ride to watch you grow your little mobile home, and I'll totally introduce you to that guy, and you can pick his brain. He's a super nice guy. So, guys, if you like this episode, make sure you send it out to your friends and leave us a review, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to Construct Your Life with Austin Linney. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and pay it forward by sharing with a friend. Most importantly, take this opportunity to start constructing your life by taking immediate action on what you learned. For show notes, resources, and more information on one-on-one coaching with Austin, visit constructyourlifepodcast.com.